You're listening to Talk Star Wars, a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth podcast network. Check us out on the web at starwarscommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world. Talk Star Wars is a production of Emotionally 14. For fantastic podcasts, video series, blog posts, and much more, visit us on the web at emotionally14.com and enjoy content for the permanently teenaged.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 187 of the Talk Star Wars podcast from emotionally14.com. I'm your host, as always, Rob Wade, and I'm joined by the Chewie to my Han, the Near Numb to my Lando, the L3 to my Lando. There's so many co-pilots when I think about it. Every week I think of another one. Insane. Anyway, yeah. Brad Homer Barnes is here.
I'm the gold leader to your red leader. How are you doing?
I'm good. This is a milestone podcast.
Is it?
It is my last podcast as a unmarried man.
Okay.
By the time this episode releases,
that to change for show's demographic.
Well, I wouldn't have thought so.
No, because for people who are relatively new to the show, it sounds like we're getting married.
Well, no, yes, it's true. But that's not the case. You're right.
No.
That's a good point. I should probably clarify that for sure.
I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't, but you know.
That's sweet of you to say. But no, indeed, you are right to point this out. We are not marrying each other.
No, you
will be there.
I will. But yeah,
but that's because you're invited.
Yeah. Yes, I am there.
Yes, you will be there, but you are not. You have no pressure other than be there.
Keep the toddler quiet during the "Does anyone have any objections?" moment.
It seems like that would be a nice. I don't know. I feel like that would be fine.
Well, the last wedding we were at, she made her presence felt.
That's fine. I mean, ultimately, she's cool.
The last wedding we were at the moment of if anyone has any, if anyone has objections or this may not be joined in holy matrimony, may speak now or forever hold his peace. My daughter shouted out, "No!"
Why?
I don't know.
Because has she even seen Sith?
No, she hasn't actually.
What might she have seen that would do that? I suppose Luke says it in New Hope, doesn't he?
Yeah, and Empire. Yeah,
but then I suppose here's the question though: did after the person conducting the ceremony said, "Does anybody object?" Did they hold the lightsaber up in a sort of defense, like in a submissive gaze, and then get struck down by one of the bridal party? In which case she would have gone, "No."
Yeah.
I just can't believe he's gone. Who was he? No idea. But
no idea. It was a bloke. Yeah.
It was certainly a bloke. It's bog standard man. Which is the superhero I feel we could do with. It
was a bloke from Bridge Over River Kwai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what upset her at the wedding. That's it.
Yeah.
So this is the last episode where I will be unmarried. By the time this episode goes live, I will be married.
So we make some predictions. Are you anticipating any changes in how you feel, how you behave?
I don't know. I think there's people always say, "Oh, it's not going to change me" and stuff like that. I get the sense I'll probably make more of a concerted effort to set aside some regular time for sort of husband-wife activities. Just like it's things like we don't really go to the pictures much, things like that. We were talking the other day about we were on our way to the cinema and we talked about the cinema we sort of local to. There's a little block of new build at the end of the road down, where I'll talk about the Cineworld. There's a roundabout to go back up towards the main road.
Yep.
Over the other side now, if you go left towards the main road, over the straight across, there's a bunch of new builds. This is thrilling for the listeners, obviously, especially those fascinated by local geography and housing developments. And I was saying, do you reckon we go to the cinema all the time if we live there? And she said, I think, to be honest, we go bowling more. But it's a good point. We've only been bowling 3 times in the time we've been together. So things like that. I think there might be more kind of a concerted effort to make a regular make regular time for things like that, just stuff to do together. But other than that, I can't imagine it's going to make a huge, a massive, massive impact. Because also, not for nothing, but we've lived together for nearly 4 years.
Yeah.
In terms of the sort of day-to-day life, that's pretty well, our routines are pretty well defined in that respect.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
There might be things that change it, like, one of us might change job or whatever, but generally
that won't be marriage related.
Exactly, yeah. That's more just a change of circumstance generally, but then, as you rightly point out, that's not necessarily a marriage thing.
Yes.
It might
that would happen if you were married or not.
Yeah, exactly.
I assume, I don't know what your HR department's like.
Yeah, indeed. That may be a factor, as in, I wasn't thinking about leaving work, but then she went, "Oh, but I'm your wife." Yeah, you're right. I'd never thought about that before, but I suppose I should leave work. You are my wife. Yeah, I'm going to probably, the main thing I'm going to do, I think, on the day is work the words "my wife and I" in as much as I possibly can, just to get some practice in early.
Yeah.
I feel like I never really, I don't know if this happened to you, but I never really got into the rhythm of feeling normal saying the word fiance.
No, it was never a term I particularly
glommed onto.
Took to. No, especially as me and Charlie have been together a very long time. We've been together 10 years before we decided to get married.
Yeah.
And we had cats, we had a car, we had a house and stuff like that. So it was like the bit of paper didn't really change anything. It was ours was just more. It was an excuse for a 10th anniversary party.
Nice,
as much as anything. I started. The thing is, with our group of friends, I started saying "my wife," and then everyone started parroting it back to me in a Borat accent. So that now I have to just straight off pronounce it "my wife," and I honestly feel the same rule should apply to you as well.
I think that's fair enough. I'm all right with that. There are worse things. Yeah. There are worse memes,
But what gets me is she does it as well. If she overhears me saying "my wife," she shouts across the room, "my wife."
I know, it's fantastic. I always enjoy it, if nothing else. What's new in your world? Oh,
in my world?
Yeah.
I finished reading the miniseries of Han Solo Imperial Cadet.
Okay, nice.
It was Robbie Thompson. I think it was an old 2000 AD writer. If not, there's someone who has a name very similar to him, works on 2000 AD. Good, fun, enjoyable story kind of set between him signing up, and it's the ending kind of implies it's him arriving on Mimban, but it's not explicitly stated. No, it's a good self-contained story. It feels like the young Han Solo in it, his kind of outlook on life. Loads of bits of fan service, like a bunch of stormtroopers led by Han's roaming around on speeder bikes. The artwork was superb as well, which I can remember the artist's name, but he did a lot of his work on the TIE fighters and the TIE bombers and stuff like that was absolutely superb. Nice. Imperial Cadet is worth checking out.
Is that a Marvel Unlimited?
It's a 5-issue Marvel series. It is on Marvel Unlimited. Leonard Kirk was the name of the artist, which is 2 Star Trek references, both wrong.
Yeah, I mean it's a weird amalgamation of things that are neither of which are correct. Yeah. I haven't really read much in the way of comics.
This was a James McCoy in his family as well.
Damn it, James. Curses, James. I haven't really read any Star Wars comics recently. I've done some bits of Marvel and DC. I've been reading I've been rereading a lot of bits and pieces. I've reread Brubaker's Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Oh, cool! Yeah,
I don't know if that's the first time they ever did it in the comics, but it seems like it would be.
I think it is. Yeah,
it's good. I liked it.
Yeah.
I've seen I've read the first 2 collections. They seem to split the story off. The next one looks like it's called Red Menace. It looks to be about Crossbones, which is
cool.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, I haven't got it, but it looks all right.
Yeah.
Other than that, I read a cool Green Lantern comic, which I thought was quite.
Okay.
Not normally a fan, but I read Earth One, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, I can generally take or leave Green Lantern, but I haven't really read enough to kind of swing me either way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That was kind of how I felt. Was the only thing I'd read before that was is it Blackest Night, the zombie one?
Oh yeah,
which is very cool.
Yeah,
that's the first. But I say that's the first one I'd read for some time. Other than that,
yeah. Because of the new series we're launching on E14, Bring on the Bad Guys, I'm trying to bone up on DC. So because I've typically been a Marvel fan, and I'm trying to kind of catch up on the DC thing. I found myself liking Flash and Superman much more than I was expecting to.
Flash, kind of, I can take or leave. Although it's kind of I'm warming to him a little bit. Superman, I was surprised how many of the bits and pieces I've picked up on things like Comixology sales, other services are available. How many of those I picked up that I've actually enjoyed way more than I expected to.
Yeah.
But, that's a good thing, obviously, because... But it's just, I've been very vocal with my sort of feelings on Superman over the years. I've just found him very sort of dry and boring. But I think people have kind of grown into how to write him interestingly. Yeah. It's much more likely now, I found, that I'm going to find a Superman story that I'm going to go, this is pretty good.
Yeah, I think also there's... we're going on a superhero tangent briefly, I guess. I feel there's Superman after like the Bronze Age zeitgeist, kind of like Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, that when superheroes became dark. Yeah. And we were no longer kind of apologising for the source material. They were just telling adult superhero stories. I think we became jaded on what we felt. I mean, I'm saying we generally. People became jaded on what they felt of as the glowing four-colour good guy comics like Captain America and Superman. Yeah. And they gravitated more towards... Batman and the Punisher and the darker characters like that, probably through to the 90s. And I don't know if maybe it's might even be a personal age thing. As a kid, I loved the four color heroes. I loved Lee and Kirby's Fantastic Four. He-Man's another prime example of just that comic book good, big muscles, good guy. Yeah, and that's all there is to He-Man.
Well, there's the toys.
Yeah,
which I don't know if did you ever watch The Toys That Made Us?
I haven't. No.
Oh, dude, you would love it, right? Okay. So it's on Netflix. Other services available, but don't have it. And it's a documentary. So each episode is dedicated to one particular toy line from the sort of 80s and early 90s. Yeah. And the episode about Master of the Universe is fascinating.
Oh, I can imagine. Right? So it's one of the first action figure lines, really.
One of the little bits that caught my ear, which is what made me think of it, is the reason there was a comic is because they needed to pitch the toys to Fun. I don't know the name of the chain. It was Funland or something. It was the second biggest toys line behind Toys R Us, and I'd never heard of it before, which just goes to show how much pull Toys R Us had in terms of branding. There was like Fun City or some weird obscure. It didn't have to be about toys, just from the name, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
But they went to what's it called? They went to this company and said, "We've got these toys," and they said, "Well, why would we buy these over Star Wars when Star Wars has got a film?" And they said, "Did we not mention the comic?" And they went, "No." I said, "Oh, sorry. So it's got each figure comes with a comic in the back of the packaging that tells you that sort of builds the world." And they left them. This toy company went, "Oh, that's pretty cool," and then left the meeting. Sort of agreed in principle to kind of take it up. Left the meeting, and they said, "That's a good idea. When do you think of that?" And he went, "About 5 minutes ago." Yeah, and they just blagged it in the thing. Yeah. So then they go to Toys R Us because obviously they'd sold to the second one. Then they went to Toys R Us as well. And Toys R Us said, "Well, hang on, you're marketing these toys at 7+, like 7+. No, it was even 3+, I think, or 5+. They're not going to read comics." And they said, "Did we not mention the TV series?" And so then they went, "Oh, okay, no, great, that sounds great." And then they went, "You did it again, didn't you?" So then excellent. They went to Funimation, who were kind of famous for doing adaptations at the time, and said, "We'd like to do 2 1-hour specials." And the guy went, "Be cheaper to do a series." Okay. So they did.
Brilliant.
And it turned out that the series was really popular and still retains massive cult appeal even now.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
And apparently they knew that from the first time they watched a sort of bit of raw footage that wasn't even, it hadn't been voiced over and everything like that. Just watched about 5 minutes and went, we've got a hit, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was
caught on like nobody's business.
It's easy to look back at the cartoon and think it looks quite cheesy, and it is quite cheesy because it's basically a Conan knockoff.
Yeah, let's be fair.
In so many ways, that's another tangent I can go down.
Oh, yeah.
But it was actually incredibly expensive to make at the time. Like the transformation scene that he does, where you got the clouds rolling backwards and the lightning behind them, that was incredibly expensive, which is why they looped it and used it in every single episode. And it was one of the first, I think it's one of the first TV series that was rotoscoped. You can see a lot of emotion, like the running and stuff. They redrew over the same shots again and again because it was really quite groundbreaking for the time. Something like Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings had used that, but for a cinematic release. To use that for a kids' TV show is quite a leap. Anyway, so you get into those kind of heroes as a kid, and then as you get older, you realise that superheroes are kind of a bit goofy. I personally think superheroes should be a bit goofy. But you get to your teens, and you kind of like you want that Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, Killing Joke, or Judge Dredd. You want that more flawed hero. I guess you become attracted to the Punisher because of his sociopathic issues, rather than because you genuinely think he's a hero.
Yeah.
You think it makes, and I also think as you get older, and I certainly found when I hit kind of like 33, 34, I started liking the heroes who were just good again. Right. And I think it's because I saw it differently. It was, and specifically, two characters specifically, because I'm a Marvel guy, Cyclops and Captain America.
Okay.
Who are two guys I was never that much of a fan of previously. As I got older, I grew into them and kind of realised there's something even more heroic about these two characters who have consistently taken a beating from life. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong for Cyclops and Captain America. Captain America's whole young life was ripped from him when he was frozen in ice. He thought his best friend was dead. It turned out his best friend was a Russian sleeper agent. Civil wars. Captain America has never had a good, easy life. Yeah. By circumstance, he'd been thrown constantly into this struggle. Cyclops, his dad at a young age, is how many wives has he gone through now? How many times has he seen his school blown up? And there's something, but Cyclops gets up and he's always driving to be the good guy. And as I kind of hit that kind of early middle age drive, I found something to look up to in those people who take a hammering from life but are always trying to rise above and be the good guys. Right. And that's when I started getting Superman a bit more. It became less about the heroic hands-on hit pose, haha, I've defeated you, Darkseid, and much more I started seeing more of the everyone takes a battering and it's for real heroes that can stick to wanting to be heroes. Yeah, does that make sense, or have I gone far too off the deep end there?
No, I get where you're coming from. I've never kind of, I don't think, I'd have to kind of ruminate on it, but I don't think I've ever kind of thought about it in that much depth. I mean, I still enjoy the Punisher, and
I still do as well. It's as well as rather than instead of.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, the Superman thing. Like I say, I think I've just kind of been able to find more stories that he's kind of written compellingly in. Yeah. I mean, my Batman's still my guy when it comes to DC, but
Batman and Swamp Thing are my DC favourites.
Yeah, I've got I downloaded the Swamp Thing series to watch on the plane.
I was going to ask if you started watching it.
It's on my plane watching list along with The Boys.
I really want it to be good, but I'm also aware it got cancelled after one episode.
That is not entirely uncommon for American TV shows, so I wouldn't worry too much. Okay. Because I enjoyed Constantine, and that was only one series. I mean, the other thing as well is if the character catches on, but the series isn't necessarily the medium that catches on to project it, they might turn up elsewhere, like Matt Ryan started doing in Constantine. He started turning up in Arrow and Flash and
DC seems to be very good at that with their TV shows.
Yeah, it's a very kind of weird juxtaposition where the Marvel movie thing seems to always kind of land with the general audience, and the DC TV thing seems to land, and then the inverse is the opposite. The opposite happens with the inverse. Whereas the Marvel TV stuff seems to have always struggled to.
Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. took a couple of series, but it seems to have found a fan base now. But yeah, I mean, stuff like Inhumans crashed and burned.
Yeah, I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was rough for a while.
I've never tried watching it.
Yeah, I gave it a few goes and it just didn't grab me at all.
I really wanted to like Inhumans because I'm a big Inhumans fan anyway, but the general consensus was, as discussed on previous episodes, that it was balls.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So, I guess...
We should probably stop talking superheroes because it's entirely the wrong podcast.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we don't have a podcast for it as such, but we might not. We probably want to avoid stepping on the Nerd Room's toes.
I think we can take them.
I don't think we should. They're part of the same network and endorsed by Emotionally 14 as well. So it seems like cutting off our nose to spite our face, really, on a grand scale, I guess.
Damn you and your logic, Spock.
Yeah. Also, I've met Tim and. I know of Troy, and no, I don't believe we can. I think they would murder us if it ever came to it. I mean, granted, they're Canadian and, lovely guys generally, even the Canadianness aside. But I think if it ever came to it, I reckon we would both be dead.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to share a mutual love of Dan Aykroyd and get on with it.
That works. So... couple of things before we get to questions. So we got a new patron join us this week on Patreon.
Hello.
And I've noticed I've been lax at, as promised, it's kind of alluded to in the Patreon description, welcoming people when they join. I've actually been a little bit I've not been as hot on that as I'd have liked. So I'm going to start, making more of an effort to correct that. So the first since that has kind of dawned on me is Riley, who joined at the $1 tier this week. So thank you very much, Riley. It's lovely to have you aboard. I did welcome him personally as well, but welcome publicly on the show and enjoy your ad-free version of the TSW feeds, which drops early because that's what we offer as a perk.
For $1, what a bargain!
I know, just mad. He joined this week, and he will already. I think by the time he's charged for the first time, he'll have had maybe two or three ad-free feeds. So, can't go wrong. And then we have a 5-star iTunes review, which is the best kind. That is, the science is in on that.
It's the only kind I acknowledge.
Yeah, it's the science is in on that. It's certainly the only one maybe a 4, but nothing lower than a 4 would ever be read on the show. So, so this reads, the title is just a round of applause in emoji form, which is lovely. And the body reads, I'm hooked. These guys are informative, intelligent, and truly entertaining. Star Wars news, Star Wars theories, Star Wars questions answered. Download an episode and give TSW a go. And this is from Michael from Sydney, who, unsurprisingly, is reviewing this from Australia. So, Michael, that's very kind of you. Obviously, we've heard from you on the show in email form before.
Yes.
But very kind of you to leave us a review on iTunes. While I'm skeptical of iTunes and how I think it's been gamed a lot by people over the years, but it's still lovely to think that people would take the time to review our stuff when it's so easy, as history has proven, for people to just enjoy it and breeze on by when it comes to the review stuff. So anybody who takes, I'm eternally grateful to anybody who takes the time to scroll a few words. As I say, people could, if they wish to, and I'm sure that's happened once or twice, drop below the 4-star thing and, give some feedback. But they're not going to find their voices read out on the show, but at the same time, I'm happy for them to do so if it means we can make a better show out of it.
Totally.
Or just, read their comments and go, yeah, interesting, and then just disregard them completely forever.
That's what I do.
Which I've also been known to do.
Yep.
But Michael, we're not disregarding yours in the slightest because you have been kind enough to not only write in, but also write up as well.
To give us a proper score, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he's going through the prepositions. He's written in and he's written this up. So,
boy.
Right on. And our first email this week comes from Vesuvi.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
I know, right? And neither would she, clearly, because she keeps doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So Vesuvi writes, thanks, Rob. Glad to hear you're feeling better. Thanks, Brad. Welcome to our Canadian cider-making listener, Christian. I thoroughly enjoyed his Kenobi outline. As did we. Yeah, it was a good premise.
Yeah.
Since Rob mentioned not being on board with the big space battle between the Resistance and First Order, since the Resistance was so depleted by the end of The Last Jedi, I'm sure you're aware that a year will have transpired between episodes 8 and 9, so that should account for the Resistance being restored to a sizable armada. Let's imagine how persuasive General Organa can be when she's face-to-face with allies.
I've played Rebellion. Yeah.
Indeed. Sorry this one's so short. So much to do today. All the best to hosts and listeners, Vesuvi, Knight of the Commonwealth. So, Vesuvi, thank you for that. It's a good point. I'd obviously picked up on the fact that a year will have transpired, but I suppose that's a method for them to explain away the missing, to explain away the gulf in numbers.
Yep.
I was thinking about it, though, and personally, I would kind of like them to take more of a guerrilla approach, where they're little squads of people. So maybe you've got a few ships, but actually maybe they decide that the advantage is in small groups that kind of fly under the radar of the big bureaucratic machine.
I mean, that is a recurring motif of Star Wars.
For sure. And I think, I've touched on, my feelings on the new trilogies and their subtlety. So it would be quite fitting, I think, to see them just flat out become that kind of squad. Mm-hmm. But it's a good point, and no doubt that is a method they can use to kind of bridge the gap and bump up the numbers, as it were.
Yeah, totally.
And Vesuvi didn't stop there. So
she never does.
No, indeed. So in this case, what she's done is been kind enough to re-begin or kick back into life. Yeah, re-begin is the thing. I know, but I'm trying to think.
It's not. Continue, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Well, no, it's kind of... She's resurrected, let's say.
Resurrected is good. Yeah. Well, I'll try and think of a better one where you go in and then just blurt it out.
Okay, cool.
In that really annoying way I do.
All right, cool. Good to know. So she's resurrected her spoiler-free Resistance Roundup because Season 2 has begun in the States. So Vesuvi writes, when Into the Unknown was screened at Star Wars Celebration Chicago, I heard people... Resume... Yeah, resume works.
Yeah, that's a word we're trying to think of.
Resuming Resistance Roundup.
Yeah, we go. Hey, perfect.
When Into the Unknown was screened at Star Wars Celebration Chicago, I heard people liken it to Aliens, 1986.
Sold!
I can confirm that there are broad parallels to such a comparison.
Paul Reiser, isn't it?
There you go. That would be a broad one. Broad parallels. Somebody uses a power loader once.
Yeah.
But as for my mostly non-spoilery tease, we start out on Castellon. Racing rings still floating in a lonely sky, crashed crafts in the ocean, and a solitary TIE fighter leaving the planet to rendezvous with a Resurgent-class Star Destroyer in orbit. Pyre and Tierney are speaking to a hologram of Phasma, blimey, don't know how I missed that one, Phasma, who is now being voiced by Ellen Dubin. Phasma ominously warns them that the refueling capabilities of the Colossus must not fall into General Organa's hands. If they can't retake it, they are ordered to destroy it. We also see Tam. Pyre seems eager to grill her about her former cohort. Well, his name is related to fire, so grilling comes naturally to him. Elsewhere, the Colossus exits hyperspace. Kaz wonders if Niku's incomplete coordinates got them anywhere near Dakar. Following the recent attack and years of disuse, numerous systems all over the station, including artificial gravity, flicker off and on unpredictably. Doza and Yiga, rhymes with eager in case you've forgotten, thanks for that, I actually had, scramble to make repairs quickly so they can resume their journey to the hidden Resistance base. We get to see a heretofore unseen zone, the command deck.
Ooh.
Yeah, sounds like something from a board game, but I know it's not. In addition to all they're dealing with, they're also out of coaxium, making another jump impossible. And that's really all I should say to give you the setup, although I'm happy to mention we will encounter Vilpac briefly. So I'm just going to refamiliarise myself with the concept of Vilpac. That is a person. It's an alien, but it's a character. Is a Celidae, or a Chelidae, who worked in maintenance on the Colossus. There you go. Mm-hmm. So for those keeping score at home. So yeah, Vesuvi's going to resume our spoiler-free Resistance Roundup, which on the plus side as well for our listeners means that in the next episode where it's you and me, there will be, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 to recap. Because we're going to be in perfect hibernation for a couple of weeks.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Well, I'm enjoying the
Slacking.
results. Enjoying my nuptials. I'm enjoying my nuptials in places with unknown amounts of Wi-Fi. And I don't particularly fancy taking up a decent chunk of my hold luggage with laptops and kit. Yeah, I can only imagine it's a pain. So I'm just going to spare myself it. But Vesuvi, thanks very much for resuming. There we go. We decided on that. Resuming this roundup, and long may it continue until the series ends, I guess. Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the best place to stop.
I think so. So our next message comes from James. And James writes, this is a short one this week, but I think it's intriguing. I was watching The Chef Show on Netflix. Sorry if the UK doesn't have it yet. And one of the episodes took place on Skywalker Ranch. Jon Favreau makes the show, and at the time of filming, I believe, had just finished the Lion King remake. The episode has, as a guest, Dave Filoni, and they discuss the Clone Wars. It has some interesting insights into the everyday life of Skywalker Ranch. It just got me thinking, I wonder if Jon Favreau made the connections here for some of the Mandalorian episodes. What do you think? So in terms of, do you think shows like The Chef Show, which has regular guests?
I'm not familiar with The Chef Show. I'm assuming it's a cookery show.
I believe it's precisely that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a bit misleading if it was a motoring show.
Yeah, indeed. Much like if Top Gear was about weed.
I mean, that makes some kind of sense. It'd be like if Top Gear was about bookbinding.
There you go.
Which is a niche TV series field anyway.
But I sort of feel like it's going to happen one day.
I mean, there's probably some deep dark corner of Reddit.
Yeah, indeed. So
I don't doubt that's how he met everyone.
I would imagine, yeah.
That's how networking works.
Yeah, indeed. I'm going to have a look in a minute at an episode list to see who he actually kind of connects with in that context. Yeah. But so The Chef Show, they did a movie together, a chef with Jon Favreau as writer and director, just called Chef. And then they did a travelogue cooking show. Mm-hmm. So they go around the world and all the different cultures and things like that. And the episodes are... So Skywalker Ranch is episode 13, it looks like, of the series.
Okay.
And it includes... So the series in general includes... Oh, okay. So Gwyneth Paltrow, Bill Burr, Robert Downey Jr., Tom Holland, Scarlett Johansson, Evan Kleiman, and Jit Lada's Jazz Sing-Sanon. Okay. Robert Rodriguez. Yeah, so actually looking at it, just scrolling through, I'm not going to read the whole list because that would take forever. But it looks like literally the only one on the episodes is the one at Skywalker Ranch, episode 13.
Okay.
And apparently is Jon Favreau renowned for George Lucas? Work with George Lucas?
I'm not a huge Jon Favreau buff, I'm afraid. I mean, I enjoy his work, but I don't know a lot about.
No, but they're talking like he was sort of this. He's got this well-known, sort of running theme of George Lucas's work. But the only thing I can think of
is he involved with ILM in some capacity?
That's what I'm wondering. Is maybe he's got some sort of connection to ILM or Skywalker Sound or maybe he's using some of the Skywalker Ranch production facilities for sound stages and stuff like that for Jungle Book and all the other stuff he's made incredible use of sound stages for. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if maybe that's it. That's the kind of certainly I think where he would have started making those inroads would have been at least there, if not before. But then if he's spending a lot of time at Skywalker Ranch, he's probably got the ear of a few people anyway already. Because all it takes is to run into Auntie Kath.
Absolutely.
And just go, have you ever thought about doing this? And she could just, if she just says, oh, I like that, there you go. Just like that, doors are opened.
Boom.
Indeed. Boom goes the dynamite. So
I've forgotten.
Yeah, indeed. So there's not a lot of emails this week, but at the same time, if ever a week was to be short, I'm okay with it being this week because I would love to get some sleep before the weekend. That would be delightful. But there's a couple of bits out of New York Comic Con And
I've just had someone tweet at us, if that's helpful.
Oh, yeah, so we did. Matt Salvatore. I just remembered I did see that, but I tucked it away for later.
Yeah, he's good for stuff.
He is, yeah. So do you want to? Let's tell you what. Let's run through these quick. They're quick fire.
Okay.
So you sent out a tweet recording a new episode of Talk Star Wars tonight. Throw some questions at us. 9 minutes ago.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Half an hour ago. All right. So it must just be my phone just not updating. So Matt Salvatore replied, "Who of the heroes do you think is most likely to die in The Rise of Skywalker?"
R2.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. Any particular reason?
Yeah. It's. I was expecting him to kill him off in Force Awakens.
Partly not turn on ever again.
Partly because of how ill Kenny Baker was, and also partly because of, at the time, how much they pushed BB-8 in all the merchandising.
Okay.
Killing off R2-D2 would be a good way of establishing some kind of dramatic impact without them having to kill Chewie again. Or I'm wondering if they're going to kill Leia or not, to be honest.
I think they would have, but won't.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable supposition.
Yeah, I think had Carrie Fisher not passed away, sadly, before Episode 8, I think she would have been killed off in Episode 9.
Yeah.
I think that's entirely likely. I think the plan was to basically retire one original trilogy hero per film.
Yeah.
And that she would have been the logical choice for Episode 9.
Luke should have been 9.
Well.
But,
not what we got.
Events have changed that. So, no, that's just what I would have done if I'd been on from the start. And for various reasons, I wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, there are systems in place to stop us from getting anywhere near that. So
and barbed wire fences, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, all of those things are earning their pay and some margin. I'm going to say, let me think, which hero is most likely to die? I actually think they could take Finn down.
Cool.
I really think I don't think they've done right by him, really, generally speaking. And I think that this would be I thought they were going to kill him off in Last Jedi, and I thought it was kind of fitting, and I was surprised in some respects that they didn't go that way, but in a way, not disappointed because I don't like the character, but because it would have given him some sort of arc in 7 and 8 for him to go from somebody who was just kind of fighting because reasons to somebody who was literally became a martyr for his cause that he believed in strongly enough to throw his own life at it.
Yeah, that whole thing is mishandled in my opinion. Yeah,
I'm with you on that. I think.
Yeah, don't sacrifice yourself to save everyone, she says 5 minutes before Luke sacrifices himself to save everyone.
Yeah, we're not going to win by destroying what we hate. We're going to win by saving what we love. You've not done a lot of war, have you?
No. It's...
Yeah. I'm also, I'm a little bit, down on the whole... I understand... Every week we say, we don't say it, but we don't want it to become a Last Jedi bash
we don't want to be one of those shows that just bashes Last Jedi.
No. Every now and then
but
something
it doesn't make it easy for us.
No. Ultimately, every now and then something comes up. So
there's loads of good stuff in Last Jedi.
Totally.
Yeah. Loads of stuff.
Yeah. I
like it fine when I'm watching it. It's just it's the same deal with Attack of the Clones. I like it all the time I'm watching it. And then the credits roll and I start thinking about what I've just seen.
Yeah. And I do get what you mean. But in terms of, I get the whole, there's somebody who does a kind of, what's the word? Like a mind, they do they're an important part of the process, but they're not doing a job that's on the front lines, but they get brought up to the front lines. I get that. This is one of those things actually that Vesuvi said, there's a year, so they'll have had a chance to marshal their forces. I would like to believe that if they did marshal their forces to some significant numbers, there would be enough competent military people that they wouldn't have to elevate one of their technicians to commander which is what she's billed as in some of the. There was an exhibit of, I want to say, costumes for episode 9, and it referred to her as a military commander. It's like, that strikes me as the kind of move you make when you've got a lack of available experience.
Yep.
You go with somebody who's perfectly competent but not worldly in the ways of war, which is what they need to be. It doesn't strike me as the kind of thing that makes a ton of sense if you're looking at a fully decked out resistance force. It doesn't seem to me like it's like, right, well, we definitely want to give it to the repair technician. We want to give one of the top military roles available in the army. It strikes me, like I say, it strikes me that that's the kind of thing you do when you're up against it. You need, dedicated people.
Yeah.
You need good people. And you need people who maybe can win hearts and minds, but you need experience. And it strikes me that if you don't have that, yeah, sure, you go with whoever you've got who's enthusiastic and, has, siblings with military experience, so maybe they're hoping for some sort of osmosis. But it seems like unless you've got a small force, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No.
That leads me more towards thinking that it's going to be a light touch kind of level of people rather than big armies. See, I think they could end up in a way. It would almost be like mildly walking back Last Jedi and not having him, having him actually die for a cause he now feels so strongly about. So maybe it'd be like a mild walk back. But I could see it being one that would actually work really well if they did it right.
Yeah.
So Finn is going to be my pick.
Okay, cool.
Why do you think Kylo puts his mask back on?
Because he needs to do some spray painting and can't find his proper one.
Is that why he has to seal up the holes with like the sort of the solder? Because
you got it.
Otherwise, he's going to get some fumes, and then he's going to have red eyes, and they're all like, "Oh, he's touched by the Sith," and he's like, "No."
Well, in my experience, when it catches, if people who don't know, I do a couple of tabletop shows for Emotionally 14, so I do a lot of miniature and painting work as well. When it catches you, it is when you go, it's just a quick job. I don't need your mask on for this one, and all of a sudden you need to go and have a lie down. Yeah,
I can imagine. I've done a tiny bit of painting, and my experience is usually I don't even spray, and I need to sit down every now and then.
Yeah, it depends. Some brands are worse than others. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think also partly it's because I paint up doing a handstand, which is odd by most standards.
It's an uncommon technique these days.
Yeah, but you can't argue with results like mine. I don't.
No. Why do you think Kylo puts his mask back on?
Because only the people on the walker have seen his face.
Okay.
And he needs to. I think it's twofold. I think one, he needs to present. I think part of the reason he wore the mask in the first place is not just the Vader love; it's the youth, the relative youth of him.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
So the idea that the sort of the First Order would be reluctant to sort of take orders from somebody so young. There's a really good piece of acting by Adam Driver in Force Awakens that kind of drives that home for me, and it's when he's in the hologram chamber with Snoke. Yeah, and he's got his mask off, and he's just tried to probe Rey's mind, and she's resisted. Yeah, and he's got his mask off, and he's annoyed, and he's cross, and he's yelling, and he's kind of defending himself.
Strong with the Force.
Yeah, Hux walks in, and you see him turn around as if he's just been caught doing something he shouldn't. Yeah, and and it seems like it's because he's exposed. He's got his mask. He hasn't got his mask on, and he's not presenting that. Yeah, that sort of face anymore.
So there's a GIF I've seen of him doing that. She's strong with a Force, untrained but raw potential, something like that. Yeah. And the quote accompanying it was, "This is the exact face my son does when he finds a really awesome grasshopper."
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it's a similar sensation. Yeah. But so there's that element of it. I think he still sees himself as needing to put on a kind of a public front. Mm-hmm. And also, I think it's a certain amount of defiance of Snoke, and Snoke's kind of a recognition that Snoke's manipulation has been taken away from him.
Mm-hmm.
Now maybe maybe we find that he's actually being kind of steered by Palpatine when he puts it back on because it's a Vader thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's plausible.
Yeah, so that's what I'm leaning towards. But
so it's a Vader thing because of the Palpatine connection. You think? Okay. Yeah, I kind of lean towards the public aspect of it more than anything else. Like this notion that he needs to sort of put on a face that people will fear rather than a relatively youthful face, and people will be like, "Oh, it's that bloke from Girls." Isn't that Matt, the radar technician?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Next, will Episode 9 address how Anakin's lightsaber was found?
No.
I think
they've dropped the ball on it, and I think they've completely forgotten all about it, and it will be resolved in some really, really carking, stupid 4-page backup strip in a Marvel comic.
It's funny you should mention that. I don't know if you've seen the pictures.
No.
So
that's a genuine prediction on my part. I haven't
So
seen any leaks or anything.
Hold that thought for the news.
Okay.
So, do you think C-3PO will get his wiped memories back?
I don't care.
Okay.
If he does or doesn't, what possible effect could that have?
I mean, maybe that's why he goes red-eyed. Maybe he's like, "You kept all this from me."
I hate you. No, if Andy Daniels just flips, how amazing
that would be if he goes like full on. C-3PO goes full on diva.
Yeah.
In Episode 9, that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
I would, and he just kind of goes into business for himself.
Yeah,
as they say. But yeah, those are Matt's questions. So Matt Salvatore, thank you very much for those quickfire Twitter questions.
Yeah.
So the news. So this is what I mentioned.
Yeah.
So there's a link in the show notes.
Vague tangential link from a point earlier. We referenced Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings earlier.
Yeah.
Do you know Anthony Daniels is in that?
Yeah, isn't he Legolas?
He plays Legolas, yeah.
Yeah, which is odd. You can't imagine him doing that in a live-action film, can you?
No.
Or if he does it in the C-3PO outfit.
What strikes me... there's a lot of things that strike me weird about Ralph Bakshi's version of Lord of the Rings, but definitely chief among them is why Legolas wears pink and white, like some sort of marshmallow sandwich, when he lives in a forest.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm totally following your train of thought, and I think that is a fair question.
Yeah,
that I actually think we should make Ralph Bakshi answer.
Yeah, or Anthony Daniels.
Oh, Anthony Daniels, he might. Yeah. He might know. I guess
he might have a canon answer. Who knows? What's your opinion on C-3PO's wiped memories?
Similarly to you, I don't know that it makes a huge amount of odds. It's not so much that I don't care, but I just. Even if they did it, I don't see how you could tie it in a way that would make a huge amount of gravitas.
No,
because and purely because I don't think C-3PO has seen anything that they would find useful.
No,
does that make sense?
And it's one of the few bits of Episode 3 that annoys me, that droid's memory bit, because for ages we were all sitting there going, well, why doesn't C-3PO recognise these people? Why doesn't he know this? And then they just threw that in. It's just like, then why was C-3PO in the films at all?
Well, if it's any consolation, there is a stupider take on that. And it was actually one that I think the Star Wars Twitter shared it once. And Steele Saunders of Steele Wars had this massive rant about this. And I loved every second of it. I was right there with him. And it was the notion that he went into low power mode because he'd spotted Anakin's lightsaber and was programmed not to divulge Darth Vader's identity. So there's a few problems with it.
Several.
Yeah. Chief among them is how prescient was Anakin Skywalker, age 8, that he went, one day, I'm going to be the ultimate embodiment of pure evil. And I don't want my lingual
Dream big.
Yeah, I don't want my Rosetta Stone machine to rumble me.
Yeah,
because that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with he's a translator unit.
Yeah,
he's a protocol droid. He is he's an Echo Dot.
Yeah.
Other time assistants are available.
C-3PO serves zero purpose in the prequels at all. He's put into Phantom Menace for a kind of a goofy arm punch, hey, look at that moment, straight out of a Abrams movie. Of just you going, hey, it's C-3PO, that's kind of weird, but yeah, sure, it's made, thank the maker, kind of ironic, I guess, but okay, yeah, we're all that. It's even weirder in Episode 2, when Anakin and Padme turn up at the Lars family homestead, head off to try and find Shmi. That fails. They come back home, and then when they leave, they just take C-3PO with them. Because
it's especially weird.
It's also, I'm taking the droid with me.
Yeah,
it doesn't belong to you.
No,
it's just yoinks for droid.
Yeah. I guess there must have been a conversation.
And then takes him into a battle zone.
Would there have been a conversation, do you think, where he was like, well, technically I built him.
Yeah.
And he did like the tradesman thing where it's like, okay, well, if you're not going to pay me for him, I'll take the parts back. Like, I'll take the materials back.
It's so bizarre that he's there at all.
Yeah, it is. It is proper weird that whole thing exists.
Yeah.
I mean, him on episode on Geonosis, we've done to death. Our thoughts on this are well documented. It's very stupid.
I'm honestly convinced it was supposed to have been Jar Jar in that sequence, and it was for fan backlash against Jar Jar that made him do a bit of a rewrite. You have to excuse me, the cat's just snuck into the bedroom.
That's okay.
Carrie, out. Get out. Okay, yeah, I'm back. Don't even bother cutting that bit. You can just leave it in.
It's fine. Yeah. You didn't cuss at it. It's fine.
The cat's obviously feeling better.
Yeah, indeed. That's good. Well, I'm pleased to hear that.
Well, yeah, she's finally back home. We're hoping it's the last.
That's good.
Last hospital visit for her.
That is good. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm convinced it was supposed to have been Jar Jar in those scenes because C-3PO in Attack of the Clones doesn't act like C-3PO in any other Star Wars movie. He acts like Jar Jar.
Yeah, he is a bit of a sort of pun factory at that point.
Yeah.
And I don't remember in episode 4, what I really need is a droid who understands the binary language of moisture evaporates. Sir, I also like puns.
What I really need is a droid who understands the binary language of slide whistles and car horns.
Yeah. What I really need is a droid who understands the language of nightmares. And the physical and the psychological realm of dream and nightmare interpretation.
I'm so confused. Shut up.
Yeah, indeed.
It's bad.
Nightmare.
And then he's barely in episode 3 anyway.
Yeah.
He turns out to have his memory wiped.
Mm-hmm.
I think he shuffles towards Padme awkwardly at one point. That's all he's in that film.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more the idea of a droid having a nightmare makes me cross. And the reason is because it's the equivalent of you walking in on your cat and going, "You all right?" And it just goes, "Ennui." It's the same thing. It's somebody or something who should have no concept of being able to articulate that because they should have no frame of reference for what it means.
Yeah.
And yet, Garfield, who talks, right?
Yeah.
Can't even pin down ennui.
No.
Right? So why should C-3PO... I don't know how I got to this, but now I'm here.
Here we are.
Yeah. I don't understand how that slipped the net. It's just so odd.
It's just bizarre, yeah. Maybe that's why he wanted his memory wiped.
Yeah, it's just like, no. Yeah, actually, there's a deleted scene where he's just like, look, have a word. If you could just see yourself to having my memory wiped, I like surprised. Yeah. It's fine. I understand that too, apparently, as a concept. I understand the concepts of acting surprised.
Is there any point to R2 being in the prequels either? I mean, obviously he's there as this kind of Swiss Army knife in episode 2 and 3. But did we need that? Did we need the droids in the prequels at all?
I don't know.
Couldn't we have had them quite happily just be some droids on the Tantive 4 in episode 4 and that's when you first see them? I
think you could have. Whether or not, obviously we've touched on some of the reasons they did it is because it's, I mean, nowadays they just repackage the figures with the film's branding, even if they're not in the film. Because we had solo Luke Skywalkers and things like that. So
I mean,
nowadays they don't seem to care about that stuff.
if you've got any complaints about the droids in the prequel trilogy, just want to give thanks to Rick McCallum and all the hard work he did talking George Lucas out of even stupider ideas.
Exactly. There was certainly going to be stuff.
Like having Han Solo at the Battle of Kashyyyk in Episode 3.
Oh, lest we forget. Man, that would have been
Rick,
awful.
We love you.
Yeah, that would have been just the worst.
It really would have.
Really glad he stopped that happening.
Yeah. Eternally grateful for Rick McCallum.
Yeah, indeed. In terms of going back to the original question with C-3PO's memory, I don't know that there's anything he does that fits in terms of...
No, he's not like he's privy to secret information, is it?
No. And if they make it that he suddenly is, that's I don't want to say it's a red line, but I'll be annoyed. I'll say that.
Unless they played it for laughs and he gets his memory back and he goes, "Oh, Mistress Leia, I've discovered that you and Luke are related."
Yeah, he just starts rattling off all the little things we'd known.
Old spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the idea that an 8-year-old Anakin would program in a "don't compromise my identity" circuit into C-3PO, bearing in mind that nobody knew Anakin was going to be Darth Vader until he literally became Darth Vader in a room with just him, Mace Windu, and Darth Sidious. Mace Windu, one of those three people, lest we forget, found out and then went out the window. Yeah, it's mad to me that's a thing.
Absolutely stupid.
It's like them having Order 66 in the clones. C-3PO has like Order 31, which is just kick into life a circuit that prevents you from revealing the owner of revealing the identity of the 8-year-old boy who built you way back when. Yeah, but Madness. Was not that fail safe was not triggered by being on Tatooine, being around Darth Vader's daughter, being on the Lars family homestead, meeting Ben Kenobi. That didn't trigger any of it. No, but as Steele Saunders rightly pointed out, are you telling me that C-3PO has an encyclopedic knowledge of lightsaber hilts as well? Yeah. He can tell apart Anakin's from, say, one of the ones that General Grievous wields. Yeah. Like, it's mad. Yeah, it's so stupid. Anyway, what's the news for this week, Rob? So the big thing out of New York Comic Con is we got a little bit more detail about some various book stuff for Lucasfilm, from Lucasfilm's publishing panel. Oh, awesome. Yeah, so... what books? The other thing before that, actually, before we touch on that, just quickly, did you have any kind of effects from Force Friday at all? I wasn't aware. When's Force Friday? Last week. Obviously not. Well, clearly not, no. Because I know, obviously, you buy toys for the little one, but you're not a toy person yourself generally for the the collectible stuff. No, I get people like it, but it's not for me. Yeah. I sort of... See, my thing has been I've enjoyed some of the collecting stuff when it comes to, like, I've got a few Black Series figures. They're still in the boxes, but not because I'm deliberately trying to keep them that way, but because at the moment that's the most space-efficient way of keeping them. Mm-hmm. So keeping them in the boxes means they take up a pretty consistent amount of room. So, but, I would potentially open them if I had somewhere I could sort of stick them on the shelf and, much like I've done with my Funko Pops. My Funko Pops are out on the shelf. Yep. And they're just on display because I like them, and that's what they're for. I sort of, even the little bit of Star Wars toy stuff I did enjoy has lost its luster for me. And I want to get your thoughts on this. My sense is that the action figure stuff, and I'm trying to find the best way to word this, it's particularly, I think, noticeable with the Black Series stuff. They've become reactive. They've become proactive, where before their publication of figures was reactive. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is there was a point, and I don't know when it happened, I think it was when Solo came out, where they went from, let's see if a character catches on and gets a bit of a cult following, and then we'll make a Black Series figure, which is, as action figures go, the slightly cultier version. That was my understanding of the Black Series. They've got the more points. I think they've got slightly more articulation. They've got a better. They do vehicles sometimes as well, don't they? Yeah, they've done vehicles and dioramas and stuff as well. Like, it's been known for things like, I think they've got one where Luke is sort of attaching himself to the underside of the walker and stuff like that, the AT-AT walker. And there's a diorama with Kylo. I want to say Kylo versus Rey, and then there's a Luke versus Vader one, and all sorts of stuff. But there was a point where it seemed like rather than do what they were doing before, which is let's see if the character catches on, then we'll do a Black Series of the really popular ones. Now everybody's got one. Yeah. Like, it's even they've got stuff. They've got. I think they've already done the sculpts and everything reveals for the Fallen Order Black Series, and that game's not out for another month.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I care about these characters yet. I don't know whether I care enough to have action figures of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I did want them, but I would want a Black Series one, or whether I would be happy with a 3 3/4 or a, something like that.
Well, how big's the Black Series? I thought they were similar sort of size.
Some of they have 3 3/4 variants, but generally I think they're 6s or 5 1/4 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 6s, 6-inch Black Series.
Okay.
And then they've got, so I say, some figures are available in 3 3/4 inch. Certainly the earlier ones were both. So you could get like Obi-Wan Kenobi in his Clone Wars general outfit in. Yeah. I think they've only just released the 6-inch Black Series or a new version of it recently. But like I say, it just feels like they've switched. There's a switch that's flipped, and now they're just putting everything out there on the shelf rather than being more kind of pick and choose. They've just scattershotted it. And I wonder if that's why the toys aren't really selling as kind of consistently as they used to.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, granted, part of the problem, I think, is that toy companies haven't done the best job at sort of fomenting excitement about these products. Like, we didn't have, to my knowledge, there was no Force Friday event near us. Obviously, we had Toys R Us is gone, but there's a Smiths now. Yeah. We could have done something for that. I didn't really see anything on Amazon. You'd think they'd be on that because they're kind of one of the bigger toy sellers, I would guess.
In terms of pop culture in general, Star Wars seems in the slump.
I know,
especially considering we've got Episode 9 2 months away.
Yeah.
I'm seeing nothing. I'm feeling no hype.
Yeah. I do think I think they had this with Solo. We've touched on this before. I think they're resting on their laurels a bit.
Yeah, totally.
I think they're sort of relying on the name to carry it into Christmas.
But if I'm going clothes shopping for my daughter, I should be able to walk in and pick a Star Wars shirt up for a kid. I should be able to walk into any item and find loads of Star Wars toys. And there is Star Wars toys to buy. Yeah. But it is swamped by Marvel stuff. Yeah. Which I understand, because I think really, as an aggregate, Marvel makes more money for Disney.
I would imagine so. I think the only difference, I guess, would be that Star Wars, I get the sense that Marvel doesn't make as much money on the comics as they used to in terms of the sales. They make more money off the movies, which makes sense because movie tickets...
They do 2 or 3 a year.
Yeah, exactly. They do 2 or 3 a year, and comics have kind of been trucking along pretty consistently. They don't really ramp up the production of comics. Yeah. They can kind of gradually ramp up the production of movies, and they have. Obviously, they started off with sort of they started off with the really well-known heroes. Yeah. Now they're kind of scraping the barrels of really would be too unfair a term for it, but they are. I think it's fair to say. I don't think many would argue that they're kind of running dry on the really top-tier AAA characters. Because they kind of, in terms of solo movies, Black Widow is probably the only one left from the original Avengers that hasn't. Oh, Hawkeye, I guess, as well. And, the Hawkeye's getting a TV show. Vision.
Yeah, but they do also have to evolve it and bring in lower-ranking characters to turn into A-listers.
Yeah, I think
they can't just bank on having Captain America and Iron Man forever.
No, it's true.
I think they've been bold with the events of Infinity War and Endgame. Yeah. And I think it will pay off because something I've always felt DC did very well was that some of the characters almost like pass on. I mean, there's been like 3 or 4 Green Lanterns over time, and it was almost like every generation had their James Bond, every generation had their Green Lantern. Yeah. And if the MCU can have that going on, the kids who are 9, 10 now will be excited in 10 years' time for the movie that's going to be the payoff for Scarlet Witch and Falcon. Then they're really playing the long game, and I really hope that works for them.
Do you feel like
my concern is they still have a villain problem? But they've got Doom now, so hopefully that'll improve.
I thought that was one of those weird things about. I don't think it's unfair to say that, generally speaking, movie critics, the movie-going public, I mean, the box office is pretty clear on this, but the movie critics, I think, they do feel like they see it as team sports quite a bit. Like Marvel, you have to have a Marvel or a DC team. You can't. It doesn't feel like they can be subjective about both as much as they should be able to, I guess. I think
the Marvel movies, for a while there, were always the ones taking the initiative and trying something new. And I think the credits copped onto that because, Marvel did Civil War, which they built up for years, and then DC, with their second movie, goes, oh, hey, let's just do Batman versus Superman. And every single part of the marketing for Suicide Squad was made to try and make it out to be that it was a bit like Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think critics cottoned onto that they were always going to be. DC seemed keen to be the second ones to do the next big thing every time. Right. And then after that, it became a joke to, oh, here's DC, let's see what we can pile on here. It's lazy journalism, but it is what happens. Sure, I mean, he's come out of it now. Somehow I missed a meeting about this apparently, but it used to be any movie Keanu Reeves a critic has put out, critics would absolutely pound his acting in it, and it became a running joke. They wouldn't even give him a flight. He could have made the best movie ever, given an outstanding performance, and critics would still pile on him.
He did make John Wick.
But it became, that's what critics are supposed to do with Keanu Reeves. Yeah. And I think from what you're saying, there's a little bit of that's what critics are supposed to do with DC. I mean, it looks like the Joker's kind of bucking that trend.
Well, now they're complaining about it from a different point of view. But yeah, I mean, I did mean to mention in the intro that I have seen the Joker, and I thought it was excellent.
Oh, how is it?
It was really good.
It's the first DC movie I've been curious, and again, kind of doubling down on what I was saying about how Marvel has took the initiative. This seems like the first time DC's taken a punt on something different.
Yeah, I think what's happened is they've started to see the fruits of. Well, I mean, ultimately, I think what's started to happen to me. There seems to have been a gradual kind of schism opening between the critic scores. Certainly, Rotten Tomatoes is a really good example of this. Mm-hmm. Rotten Tomatoes, if you look at the critic scores versus the audience scores, that schism, that divide between the two is getting wider, it seems. Mm-hmm. So something like the critics will all slam Aquaman, and then the audience will love it, and it will make $1 billion. Mm-hmm. And I think what's starting to happen is, I don't know, maybe it sounds like a weird kind of thing, but it's kind of close to what I'm generally driving at. It sort of feels like the audience has realised that they hold more power than the critics. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, a lot of it's kind of that slow death rattle of traditional media as the needs of the audience and the whims of the audience change, and traditional media is kind of a bigger, slower turning oil tanker to kind of adjust to that. And also the formats, they don't necessarily lend themselves very well to what people respond well to. Mm-hmm. I think we were talking about, maybe even last week, about how the kind of the scope of the TV series, the TV dramas have changed to the point where they're much bolder plot lines, much bigger scope of characters, much more fleshed out character models. Because as audiences, I think generally speaking, we've become a little bit more discerning. Mm-hmm. You know, we're less likely, because I suspect it's because of the bevy of choice of good stuff you can find. When it comes to, you know, if you want to watch a drama about, like a fantasy drama setting, you can find at least, I would say, half a dozen really excellent ones with high production value, with complex characters, with strong stories. You know, like things like I mean, it's not fantasy as such, but let's say like...
Or Swords of Truth, if you fancy a rubbish one.
Sure. But in terms of like, you know, like if you talk about a medieval style setting, you've got something like Game of Thrones. It's kind of a slightly different setting, but Vikings has still got that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, totally.
And there's more, there's a few like that. So you can then, it's not good enough to put out something subpar when the competition is so strong. Yeah. You can't just have, you couldn't just have a show that's like, oh, it's a bit weird now that Stranger Things has been and gone. Because it's just going to smash it to pieces. It's not enough anymore to just be, we're quirky. And I feel like a few years ago it was. It was enough to say that. But kind of touching back to what I was saying, so I think that what's happened is audiences are kind of, they're just realising that they're not lined up with the critics, and that's okay. And, and maybe there's an element of, I don't necessarily think this is why DC is kind of enjoying a bit more popularity. I think, like I said, here's a thought. Maybe it comes from a kind of a sort of natural inclination to contrarianism. So imagine, so let's say, as you've laid it out, it's bang on 100% correct, right? Which is totally within the realms of possibility. I have every faith in you that that's absolutely how it works. So it's the meme thing on like Reddit and stuff to dunk on DC, right? And it becomes a thing. And then the critics, who are seen as these kind of stuffy, holier than thou, we know better type characters, start dunking on DC. And then suddenly moviegoers go, it's not fun anymore. It's not cool. Like, they've made it uncool. You know what I mean? There might be a natural kind of, a small group of people for whom that's sufficient for them to start giving DC a different shake. Just because the people they see as the sort of stuffy squares have actually started to join in with the joke, and they've kind of ruined it. Whether that's true or not, I could be just talking out my rear end, but that's kind of it's plausible, I think.
Yeah, so that's a Black Series action figure, yeah?
How did we get here? I'm genuinely struggling.
Convey X.
Yeah, that was a very Convey X moment. Anyway, so Marvel, that was it. Yeah, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, and the kind of the enjoyment thereof.
Yeah.
So we're talking about how Marvel and Star Wars make money.
Yeah.
So Marvel has got comics, it's got TV, it's got movies, it's got toys, it's got cartoons, it's got all this stuff. Star Wars has got a film sometimes, and it's got a TV show sometimes, and it's got comics, but they've not been around long enough to really get enough traction that the characters are going to be popular. They're not going to catch the broad mainstream appeal.
I wonder if part of it is at the time Disney bought Marvel, comic book movies sucked. And really, it was only Blade was the only one that had really taken off.
Didn't they buy it? Oh, wait, no, we're going back further than Dark Knight, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose we're going way back further than that. Because it's pre... Yeah. Was it 2008 when it's Iron Man 1? Was that a Disney Marvel?
That's the first Disney Marvel MCU movie, yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah. And then now... Yeah, you can go into anywhere. And as you say, Marvel is pencil cases and T-shirts and everything. And, I can go into a generic supermarket. I'm not talking a toy shop. I'm not talking Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
I walked into a food supermarket in the toy section, and there was a Triton action figure for sale. Triton, one of the minor Inhumans, was just in the toy section. And this is like before the Inhumans TV series. I don't even know if he's in the Inhumans TV series. He's a relatively minor member of the Inhumans royal family. He's kind of the Prince Andrew of the human royal family, I guess.
He's certainly there, and people might recognise him if they saw him, but they wouldn't know where from.
Spot on.
Yeah.
So and that's just like that's a mad thing. So I wonder if part of it is Disney has a certain kind of amount of brand pride in that the Marvel we know now as of 2019, they have facilitated, they have pushed, they have created, whereas they purchased Star Wars as a very much complete pop culture phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing they could do on that level with Star Wars that Star Wars hadn't already done for itself.
Interesting. Yeah. Because, you're right, because Marvel before pre-Disney, maybe it was pencil cases, but it wasn't, like you say, that broad swathe of mainstream appeal. And they probably had cartoons and they had, animated movies, I'm sure.
It was trucking along, but nothing compared to, post Iron Man.
Yeah, definitely they've done certainly I'd say
it's a superb job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Disney's saved Marvel. Disney's done great. I have nothing but praise for what Disney have done with Marvel.
Yeah.
I don't think they've had any negative impact on the comic side. Mm-hmm. I think any negative things that were there were either already there or probably would have happened anyway. I don't think they've been especially hands-on with the comic side of it. They're happy to use the comic side to continue to truck on and do its thing, and it's generally, I think Marvel is generally doing very well at the moment.
Yeah,
I'm speaking creatively here. I think they're generally as a series doing very well.
Okay,
just as a reader, I'm not talking fiscally here.
Yeah.
And they've been relatively hands-off with them, and I have just used it as a marketing machine, and they've done very well. And the movies, I find Marvel movies, there's only 2 or 3 I've seen more than once, but I don't know I've ever seen one I genuinely disliked. Even ones I'm kind of meh about, like Dark World. I remember watching it at the time, thinking it was fine, and then forgetting about it afterwards.
Yeah, I didn't think much of Dark World.
I can't remember anything about it, but I don't feel I came out of it going, bloody hell, that was awful.
I think I did, but that's probably because I'd had it already kind of built. Like
seeded for you. Okay.
People, it was more people were like, "Yeah, that's a rough film," and I was like, "Okay, I need to watch it," because I was trying to catch up on stuff before a particular movie. I forget which one. Might have been Doctor Strange. Actually,
okay, yeah,
I've been looking to get in there.
It's undeniably one of the weaker ones.
Yeah, I mean,
in the series. Yeah, but there's even ones that I'm kind of meh about, like Captain Marvel. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I enjoyed it while it was on. Krennic in it, it's fine.
Yeah.
There's very few to no Marvel movies I've gone, oh, bloody hell, what was that?
Yeah. I can't think of any.
So I think Disney has generally done, and I almost wish they'd made as much effort with Star Wars as they did with Marvel.
Yeah.
No, let me rephrase. I wish they'd made as much effort with Star Wars as they did with Marvel beyond 2016.
Okay, so I see what you mean. So after 2016, it's like they've kind of ramped it right down.
Yeah. It'll sell itself now. Or they've just gone, yeah, that's good and all, but Marvel's bringing the money in 3 times a year.
And it's doing it right now, whereas Star Wars is like, I'm bored now.
And I think, I mean, I see more kids in Marvel shirts than Star Wars shirts.
I'd have to think. I mean,
well, I go to baby groups and kids groups. I'm around more children than you are.
That's fair.
It's
I see much any legal services. Then absolutely
any other podcasts. Yeah, but Marvel's everywhere, and Star Wars is not. You can walk in to a kids' clothing store or a toy store and see Marvel. You have to look for Star Wars, and that's we're 2 months away from a new, what's supposedly a massive movie. There should be colouring books everywhere. There should be comics everywhere. There should be toys in shop windows everywhere. Yeah. And there ain't.
No, it's true. This is one of those things, I think, and this is one of the reasons.
Sorry, just round off.
Fine, yeah.
And this is at a time, right now, when Disney's ramped down the Marvel side.
Yeah, you would think that they would use that to kind of fill
but
the
they're
gap.
not bothering.
Yeah. I don't know. Why do you think that is? Is there something behind it, do you think? Is it it's not necessarily I
don't know, it's weird. It's not like Marvel's got this massive theme park sections open up, which is something they've done with Star Wars. It's
true.
It's weird to me. I don't understand their marketing, but
no.
At the same time, the people who do it, I don't doubt know more about how to market things than I do. It's just from an outsider perspective, man, it seems weird.
It's very strange.
Can you imagine being 2 months before Revenge of the Sith and having this radio silence?
It's odd. I mean, it's one of the reasons that when people ask me, like, about the future of the show. It's why I'm like, I don't know what form it's going to take after Christmas, because then we're already in this, as you rightly point out, this kind of radio silence, or there's kind of mild static, but it's mostly radio silence. We're 2 months out from a movie. After Christmas, the next one is 3 years away.
Yeah.
What? We have very, very generous listeners in terms of writing in, but I don't know that anybody can be that generous for that long before we just run out of stuff to talk about. Because if they're not going to feed the machine with information,
with monthly wargaming releases.
Yeah, well, they do a little bit of that, sure.
So you can come on my show, Rob, don't?
Maybe I'll just enjoy the quiet. I don't know. There's a good possibility that
I will hope, beyond hope, that they will ramp up the TV and comics and books in the lull between episode 9 and whatever the next live-action movie turns out to be. We know we've got at least 2 live-action series in production, maybe 3 now, I've lost track.
Which is great, except they're still not fixing, for me, the fundamental problem, which is, okay, great, they're releasing a TV series. Over here, we're looking at February. Yeah, so that doesn't solve a problem for us for 2 months. You know what I mean? I'm not expecting them to cater for the whims of UK-based podcasters, but the UK as a whole gets really short shrift when it comes to keeping stuff in sync.
It's not just Disney, it's not just Star Wars on that front. But it absolutely inhales spheres.
But if you were to imagine a property that would be possible to buck that trend, it's Disney,
right? And
yet they are doing exactly the same. They're falling into the same. You get it a few months later than everybody else. Kind of.
Yeah, it sucks, and all I can do is add my voice to people saying,
"It sucks."
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, but please don't do that.
Yeah,
but it's one of those things. When it comes to the kind of the post Rise of Skywalker landscape, it's tough to know what that looks like.
Yeah.
It's tough to kind of predict it. And also, when it comes to the post, like the books and the comics and stuff, I think part of the reason is I don't necessarily think that, let's say, for instance, with the comics, right? Let's go back to the Marvel example, because the Marvel example is a good one to kind of compare it to. And even the DC example, I think. Because I think DC and Marvel, in terms of comic sales, are pretty even.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. I think DC maybe edges it a bit, but I would imagine a large chunk of that's Batman. Because Batman's, one, awesome, and two, a massively recognisable character that even people who... He's like the... You know how in the sort of 90s every games console was a Nintendo?
Yeah.
It seems like if you're talking about a superhero, everybody thinks Batman.
Oh, Batman and Superman.
Up there. Certainly in the top 3.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's up there. Sure.
Yeah, possibly. I'd say some people probably say Hulk, but I think that's a hangover from the Bill Bixby TV series rather than as a comic character.
I don't know where. I mean, now it would be, I think, Robert Downey Jr. But
I think Iron Man definitely. But Marvel's brand actually started pushing Iron Man over Spider-Man because they now see him as the face of Marvel.
Yeah, because it makes sense.
Such is a power of Robert Downey Jr.
Indeed, typecasting is a powerful force.
Yes.
But when you look at the landscape, Marvel has the movies, and they've got the merchandise, the toys, the cartoons, blah blah blah, the comics, right? And the comics are the bedrock of Marvel, and they have that, and they've had that going. Like I say, even if the sales are dipping, they've got the kind of the consistent throughput at the very least. It's a regular publishing schedule. So there's always something to get excited for because there's a new comic every month.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Star Wars doesn't have that in so much as their primary source of Star Wars excitement is the movies and always has been. So Star Wars has got its movies and it's always been its primary source of revenue.
The main product. Yeah,
so the main product for Marvel has historically been the comics and now it's the movies. I don't think... I don't think it's possible, and I think that history has proven it's not possible I don't think Star Wars has had anything that can possibly show any signs of taking away from the movies. The closest you had was the video games when there were no movies, I think.
Yeah.
Because they were, I feel like they did a lot of really high quality output on the video games over a particular period of kind of the late 90s, early 2000s. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of schlock in there as well, but I think that generally speaking, that was a good period for them in terms of a source of revenue that could potentially, it maybe wouldn't ever outdo the movies, but it would be something you could theoretically associate in the similar level of, oh no, that's a really good thing they do. That's a really, that's a really cool product. You know what I mean? So I wonder if maybe part of the problem for Lucasfilm and Disney is that movies are kind of, they're still a powerful force. I think TV is developing this huge thing behind it because you can tell a longer story. You can still put in the high production value. You can still get the big name actors. TV's not as big of a relegation to the sidelines as it used to be for actors. It's somewhere where A-listers and Academy Award winners go to tell really good stories.
Yeah.
And part of that might be that the stories being told on TV are better now than they were historically. As I say, you can't get away with, I love Twin Peaks, right? But you would need, I think, more depth now to do that story again. You would need more intrigue around other things besides it's a bit weird. Kind of reductive about Twin Peaks, I guess, but whatever. But that's what I'm wondering if that's what they're kind of not realizing, because I think they probably knew, but I think maybe it's kind of sinking in the extent to which that it's hard to break movies as the main box office, as the main revenue spinner for Star Wars. I don't think anything has come close. I say this, things like the comics and the books have got their fans, but I don't know that they've caught, and I certainly don't think the books have caught the imagination the same way the expanded universe did when it was the Legend stuff did.
It's because it's not cut loose and allowed to forge ahead. It's still beholden to movies at the moment. The expanded universe only started to get really good when they decided there's no more movies and the authors were allowed to cut loose and forge ahead and do new stories and push new characters and do their thing. And until the books and the comics are given that reign again, they're always going to be cash-ins for the movies. Yeah, they're going to be. Which is why I'm hopeful this break between movies will allow those authors to cut loose.
So speaking of authors cutting loose, let's kind of segue into the stuff from the Lucasfilm publishing panel.
Or if you insist.
So now that I've had my little comment about the prevalence of Black Series figures, it seems like they're everywhere, and it seems like they've stopped being, let's give the really popular cult characters a figure that's kind of cool. Now it's like Oprah, you get a figure and you get a figure and you get a figure. Yeah. And it's no wonder there's so many peg warmers. Black Series used to be the kind of stuff that was really hard to get hold of, and now it's peg warmers. Yeah. And that's not what I imagine Black Series. That's not the niche I imagine.
That's not what this should be. No. Like I say, I'm not an action figure guy, but I agree.
Yeah, I sort of feel like if they were optimistic, they might be thinking that maybe more people would spend a bit more on figures, which means that Black Series would be selling, and then they could make something like the Kotobuika or the Hot Toys 1/6 scale stuff could become that next thing where it's like, oh, you can never get them because they're so popular. And then, it's one of those reasons why when I hear, I don't always have time for the argument of like, oh, I'm so poor, I've got no money. It's like, but then you look at their action figure collection, they've got all these toys, and it's like, they weren't cheap though, were they? Let's be fair. Yeah, I've got 6 prop lightsabers, but things are really tight. It's like, that'll do it. Yeah. That's how it happens, I've heard. Yeah. Reliably informed. The publishing panel revealed a fair bit of stuff, actually. So there's a new project going on called Project Luminous.
I heard about it a few months ago, yeah.
Yeah, we had, at the time, we had the vaguest of notions that it was a thing. And now we've been given a little bit more information by creative director Michael Siglan. And he showed a slide, and it just reads, "The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things until Project Luminous 2020.
Okay.
So it's going to involve 5 authors, and it's a good list.
Yeah, totally.
Claudia Gray, obviously excellent.
Love her. Outstanding. Yeah.
Justina Ireland, I'm not familiar with her, but presumably some involvement heavily. Daniel Jose Older, who I believe did Last Shot, One Shot, or what it's called.
Yep.
Cavan Scott, who did Jedi Lost, the Dooku book.
Yes, he's done a few kids' books as well.
Yeah. But that's like his most recent kind of high-profile thing.
That's his highest profile thing so far, yeah.
And then Charles Soule, who's obviously been credited quite heavily with the Vader stuff.
Outstanding comic writer, yeah.
Yeah. And in the subject of comics, it's not just a book thing, because it's got 4 logos down the bottom, which are quite interesting.
Yeah.
Disney Lucasfilm Press.
Understandable.
Yep. Del Rey.
Understandable.
IDW.
Understandable.
And Marvel.
These are all understandable.
Yeah, indeed. So, but it does suggest that it's going to involve comics, as well. Now, what do you make of the kind of blurb that teases it? Because if it's Project Luminous, right? I sense, or my sense of it rather. Because I can see
luminous sense.
Yeah, I get somebody with the name beginning with A, B, C, D. Yeah, definitely a letter of the alphabet.
Yeah,
but Luminous suggests it's going to be about somebody dying, a character who dies, or so to me, it's entirely possible this might be about Luke Skywalker.
Possible. I mean, the obvious connotation that comes to me straight away is the Yoda dialogue: "Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter."
Yeah.
So that is a possibility. But it's an energy field created by all living things until I went straight away to energy field created by all living beings until Project Luminous. I suspect it's going to be either droids or clones affiliated to the Force.
Oh, as in. It's created by all living things until there are things that don't create them.
Until there are things which aren't living which can use it.
Oh, okay.
Because we've had it established previously that trying to clone Force users creates issues, although we've speculated that may be a focus of Episode 9.
Yeah.
In some capacity. Or, General Grievous was only able to fight the lightsabers as he did because he was cybernetically augmented, not because he was Force sensitive. So, I think it might be they're going to explore down that route.
Interesting.
So I've keyed onto living as the operative word there.
Yeah, I've kind of gone slightly differently and glommed onto until as in a state of transition from all living things until they no longer create them.
Yeah.
But what happens when that energy is kind of
that's a perfectly cromulent read of it.
Yeah. The other possibility, I guess, is that it's what happens when all living things are gone.
Yeah, okay.
So
it's just the fact it's called Project Luminous. At first, I thought that when they first dropped the name Project Luminous, I was like, oh, okay, that's the kind of Lucasfilm's code name for whatever project they're working on. That's kind of their Blue Harvest.
Yeah.
But now that it's been pushed out like that, and it appears that the title of release is Project Luminous, that's what makes me put it into like a military or a scientific project.
I mean, both could be true.
Am I making sense here?
Yeah, I mean, both could be true in that it could still be a Lucasfilm codename, but you might be right that might be the direction they're going down. But it might still be a Lucasfilm codename until they announce a formal title. So it might not be the final title of it, but it might still be with that bent in mind. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. The idea of it being cross media intrigues me.
They haven't done it for a while. It's about time.
Yeah, exactly. And it would be nice to have some stories that kind of... Knight Errant is the one that springs to mind. Do you remember Knight Errant from the Legends?
Yeah, but I mean good. Shadows of the Empire was the last really good one.
Shadows of the Empire was great.
Or the Clone Wars was... the Tartovsky cartoon and comics and novels all running simultaneously as well.
Yeah, and then obviously you had the TV series later on in years. Yeah. In years hence. Yeah. Intriguing. nonetheless.
I am.
Yeah. What else did we have? So we had a Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy.
I'm excited.
By Timothy Zahn. So presumably that's a prequel to the Thrawn stories we've had.
Or not necessarily.
It's the Ascendancy.
Yeah.
The word Ascendancy suggests potentially that it's Chiss related. That it's Chiss related at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, I haven't read Treason, so
there
could be some tie-ins to that make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I haven't read that.
Okay. Yeah.
Then they announced the Rise of Skywalker novelization, which is an expanded edition written by Ray Carson, published by Del Rey.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a bunch of kids stuff, bunch of kids books, junior novel. So have you read any of the junior novels compared to the quote-unquote adult novels of the film adaptations?
Oh, you mean the novelizations?
Yeah.
Not since I was a kid, no.
Yeah, because it's like, I can't imagine, I don't know how they work. Do they just use, like, smaller words or something?
I presume so. I mean, I had a novelization of Return of the Jedi, but I was about 8 or 9.
Mm. Yeah,
so I've not read them as an adult, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I don't mean to be like, I know I realise that kind of sounds like I might be trying to be a tool about it. I'm not. Mm-hmm. This notion to me that you would have junior versions of the same book. Unless it's like Harry Potter, where it's actually just the artwork that's different. But then it's written by a different person,
different bloke. That is, both spell and pronounce their names differently.
And indeed, I think are reversed genders. I think Ray Carson is female. I don't know for sure, but
possibly.
I believe so.
Possibly.
But Ray Carson also sounds like it could be a name from the book.
Yes, totally.
So it's got a kind of, Ray Sloan and Johnny Carson. Imagine that combination, kids.
Yeah. No, I assume it's just written in a different tone. I don't know, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it could be. I've never read, like I said, I've never read the junior version, so I don't know.
No. I never usually read the novelizations until someone put their foot on my neck and was like, oh, you've got to read the Force Awakens novelization. It changes everything. There's so much more in there. I read the Force Awakens novelization. I was like, that was great. That changed absolutely nothing.
Yeah, indeed. I can't think of any of the...
No, everyone goes, oh, you should read it. It does loads of... I think it was you told me Revenge of the Sith novelization's good.
That adds a bit, but it doesn't change the story.
No.
Yeah,
Force Awakens it gives you so much more. There's bits in there that explain it, and it didn't.
No.
So if I ever meet him again, I will stab him.
Watch yourself. Watch yourself, fool.
What else we got?
So then there's a book called Use the Force, Discover What It Takes to Be a Jedi, which seems to be like a sort of kids... what's it called? Like a sort of motivational book almost.
Oh, it does. That's quite cute.
Yeah, it's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you only get a page from this on the Star Wars website.
Yeah, that's lovely, actually. Just
it's
reading
quite
that.
Yeah. There's a Clone Wars anthology by various authors.
Cool.
Jason Fry is in the mix. I recognise his name from...
Yeah, Tom Engelberger, I know. Jason Fry, I know.
Jason Fry did a novelisation or a book of some sort.
Yep.
Maybe The Last Jedi, actually.
I'm glad of it. I'm kind of hopeful that they're going to start reprinting some of the short stories from Star Wars Insider, because I cannot be buggered to buy Star Wars Insider just for one-off short stories.
No, indeed. In the modern world, there's no. You could at least, much like they've done with things like Audible, where they've released sort of collections of podcasts as a sort of audiobook thing. They could do something similar with that as a Kindle.
I would love it. I get they probably want some sort of exclusivity on it. Like you can only get a magazine for a year after publication is pretty standard. Maybe 2 if you want to throw their weight around.
Yeah, indeed.
But news stories is lovely, but also some reprints of stuff that I can't get elsewhere would be lovely as well.
It would be. I think that's a good idea.
Because what they used to do, usually the short story would be to promote a new novel that was coming out, and then when they brought it out on ebook or paperback, they'd throw that short story in the mix as well. As like an expanded version.
Yeah.
So just do a compilation of short stories. That'd be lovely.
Yeah, I could see that working,
Yeah.
And anthology suggests that they could totally go down that route should they wish to.
Oh, this next one's intriguing.
Next one is called Star Wars Dark Legends, written by George Mann and illustrated by Grant Griffin.
Okay.
So it could be a sort of, like maybe a more adult-focused picture book.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, I don't know how best to
art book or an illustrated.
Yeah. I'm not thinking it's going to go to the level of like William Blake, but just that kind of a slightly more adult-centric comic book almost.
I'm intrigued. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the cover art on the next one.
Yeah. So this is the new Charles Soule. So Charles Soule has been announced to be reinvigorating the Star Wars comic series, the mainline comic series.
Yeah.
And it's interesting earlier that you mentioned the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Because the preview they use, if you scroll down a bit on the link I sent you, is actually one of the funniest mentally, like one of those weirdly things that just tickled me for no apparent reason. It's a picture of Vader trying to offer Luke his hand, and the lightsaber with Luke's hand kind of separating off and tumbling down the shaft in Bespin, and Darth Vader just looking at it like, don't see that every day.
Yeah, his impassive face is,
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, so Charles Soule is going to be resurrecting the mainline Star Wars comic. So
yeah, I'm really happy about that. I think he's a really good pick for it.
I think he's I don't know if I've read any of his for Vader, but I know he comes very highly recommended. So I'm cautiously optimistic. Speaking of Charles Soule, he's also writing Star Wars: The Rise of Kylo Ren.
Okay.
So the cover art for it is fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Young Ben Solo versus Kylo Ren as a kind of duality of character, which is weird. So here's a weird thing I noticed, right? So I don't know if I talked to you about this already, but there was a panel from this Kylo Ren Age of Resistance that did the rounds. And it was one of the pages from when he went to the Force Tree on Dagobah.
Right.
And people were saying, and there were people who were unironically, it seemed, saying, you can't possibly tell me this guy's a villain based on this panel, based on this page of this comic where he was sort of conflicted and everything like that. And it's kind of everything in my power to stop from just writing back with, that this predates the films, right? This notion that, he was good once, there's no way he could be bad now. So have you watched films at all? Are you familiar with the concept of character arcs and development of any kind of characters ever? Because it almost seems like you've never seen a film or read a book or enjoyed any kind of media with any kind of depth. It seems weird to me that people are making the argument that he must be. A lot of it's being used by like the sort of the Ben Demption. So everybody's got to have I was saying about team sports earlier. Everybody's got to have a name. So there's Ben Demption, there's Raylo, there's, probably Finpo.
Why don't they go with Bender? That's a better name.
I can think of a couple of reasons why they might have done it. 20th Century Fox might have a copyright claim, especially although now Disney own it. So who knows?
Yeah, you go, guys. If you consider yourself a fan of the Ben Redemption arc, start referring to yourself as Benders instead.
Sure, but that's too close to Mendo. I think maybe that's why as well, because they're like, we don't want. Although we love Ben Mendelsohn because we're only human. Yeah, we might want to distance ourselves from the fact that people might just jump to that.
Yeah. Well, I thought our name for ourselves was Mandalorians.
Mandalorians. I think that's a good one. I think we should stick with that. I think that's better than. I like the Mendo thing, but Mandalorians is better because it's more Star Warsy. But it does seem odd to me that the Ben Demption kind of faction is latching on to pre-Episode 7 and probably quite far back in time events as a way of saying this character is not possible to stay as a villain. It's like, that's not...
Hitler was a baby once.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And look how that turned out. And then rounding off the novel stuff, a new Alphabet Squadron novel.
Brilliant.
By Alexander Freed called Shadowfall.
Superb.
I feel like Shadowfall was a theme that touched in the original book. That name rings a bell.
I'm pleased about that because Alphabet Squadron I kind of came out at the end going, that's good, but it felt very much like a pilot.
Yeah.
So now they're doing a second, I'm enthusiastic about that.
Yeah, I'm pleased they're kind of, if nothing else, I'm pleased there's franchises that they're willing to kind of pursue.
This is the kind of stuff that will need to be ticking over while we're in that dearth of Star Wars after Episode 9.
Yeah, this is exactly. They need these characters to kind of to catch on and to endure, because there will be a point, as you rightly point out, where they can't. There will be a point where they've kind of, for lack of a better expression, they've killed off a lot of their merchandising characters.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of the reason that there is a small group. I don't know about how I say small. I don't know how big it is, but there is a group of people saying that one of the reasons they weren't so keen on Solo is because they didn't care anymore because his character was dead in the main timeline. Which
I guess, if you're a casual fan, I kind of get that.
Yeah, I can see why that wouldn't appeal to, and I mean, I can even see why it wouldn't endear you to the films, even if you're not a massive fan, but more than a casual fan, but you really, really loved Han Solo.
Yeah.
So you might see it as like
what's the point? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, well, you've taken away my favourite part of this, and now you're going to tell me where he came from after the point where it starts mattering.
Yeah, I get you.
Kind of.
Yeah, not sure how much I agree, but I understand.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I really like Solo, but that's kind of one of, I think, the kind of prevailing opinions, and I do kind of understand where it comes from.
Yeah,
I do get that. But where was I going with this? They need the new characters to catch on, because they've killed off some of the more popular characters of Star Wars history.
Yeah,
and granted, they're bringing back some of the ones who've kind of gained popularity over the years, like Palpatine has kind of. I feel like Palpatine's become kind of a bit of an anti-hero. I think particularly because he's meme-worthy. I think meme-worthiness counts for a lot.
It does in this day and age, yeah.
Like Palpatine, Thanos, they're all very meme-worthy. All those, and there's lots of scenes from those films that are meme-worthy too.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the contributing factors. I think, which is why it's so interesting that Joker's doing well, because I'd have to maybe watch it again, but nothing struck me as like, that's the kind of thing people are going to make memes of in that film. There wasn't anything, there was a little bit like that, I guess, but bits and bobs, but nothing to the degree of like a Thanos and Gamora's like, what did it cost you? Everything. Because you can do so much with that, and people do.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic, and I love them for it. It's really quite funny. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff to be excited about if you like books.
I do.
Yeah, there you go. We read. Been known.
Yeah.
So
some of my favourite bits of the old expanding universe were the novels.
Yeah, some of my favourite books are read.
Yeah.
So that's Talk Star Wars this week.
Yeah. Your last one.
No, not my last one. Just
as a single man.
As a single man, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Because, let's say...
There's a dramatic pause.
Yeah. But by the time this is published to the main feed, I will be married.
Done and dusted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
And then by the time the patrons get it, there will still be a few hours left.
Yeah. So
because patrons get it earlier.
Yeah.
We know this.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
So patrons, tweet Happy Wedding Day at him as soon as you get to this bit.
Exactly. And on Monday, you can still tweet congratulations. That's fine. I'm certainly not going to lambast you for it. That would be very out of character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. But that's Talk Star Wars this week. So thank you very much for listening to Talk Star Wars this week. And if you've enjoyed the show, you can, if you haven't already done so, subscribe on all the major providers. So we're on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. It's on Emotionally 14's YouTube channel on a Monday. It's available on Google Podcasts. It's on, let's say, anywhere you can get your podcast, generally speaking, you can find Talk Star Wars. And you can subscribe there. And you can also find it on the website. There's a website directly, which is talkstarwars.co.uk, where it's just the podcast page. You can play it there. Or you can go to emotionally14.com on a Monday and get the new episodes on the webpage, on the homepage. And, for the next couple of weeks, it won't be a main show. So our good friend Robert Cast has been very busy putting together some bits that will fill the space for the regular listeners. So patrons have already had these. So the first week is a tribute to Steve Kirk of the San Diego Sabres, who we sadly lost this year. I'm going to give a heads up that there is some colourful language in there that while people were enthusiastically describing experiences of being friends with Steve, they got a little carried away. So I'm going to see that now. Just be conscious of that when you're listening. And maybe if you're listening with the family, maybe put the kids to bed before you give it a go. And then the week after that is a retrospective about The Force Awakens with Kyle, Matt Salvatore, and another person whose name escapes me, and I can only apologise. But Rob Cast as well. So that will be... Mr. Cast has, like I say, very kindly filling the space for us while I am on my honeymoon. And then we will return with our normal show on what looks to be November the 4th.
It seems ages away.
It does, yeah. But part of that is because by the time we're recording on the 10th, but it will actually go live on the 14th. So then 21st, 28th, November the 4th, we're back. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So we'll be back with the main show on November the 4th. Mm-hmm. If you want to enjoy ad-free versions of all these things, because you can, even with the shows that have already been published, you can join patreon.com/talkstarwars, and you can join it at any point. And as I say, you get access to, from what I understand, you get access to the historical catalogue as well. So if you want to go back and listen to older episodes without the ads, you can. Or as I say, you can get the new episodes a couple of days early, and you get them without the ads at the beginning and end. As I say, it's available on talkstarwars.co.uk, emotionally14.com. You can find it on Twitter and Instagram at TalkStarWars. There's a Facebook page for Talk Star Wars and Emotionally 14. It's also available on Twitter at Emotionally 14 and Instagram as well. Where, Brad, can people find you if they want? Let's say, for argument's sake, they want to. Let's say, not even for argument's sake. Let's say, because it will happen. I've no doubt of this. They will listen to the show and they're like, I want to follow this guy on social media.
Okay.
Give several reasons how.
Sure. Well, on Saturday you can find me flinging rice overarm at my co-host's face. But if you want to do a more slightly intangible and less starchy way of following me, then you can add me on Facebook at facebook.com/BradHarmerBarnes, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RealBradHB. If you're absolutely desperate to get more of me, then you can check out the other two shows I do on Emotionally 14, Bring on the Bad Guys and Fire When Ready. And, of course, if you're really feeling generous, you can buy my books on Audible and Amazon.
Nice. And you can do so on the Talk Star Wars post that publishes every Monday. There's a link that you can do that. And
we make it so easy for you.
I know, right? And
he's good at this.
I try, like there's bits I could do better. I'm almost certain of this, but at the same time, there's some cool stuff I do which makes lives easier, and I'm happy with that as a general rule. Yeah. So I can be found on Twitter.
I'll make sure that goes on your headstone.
Thanks.
There's some cool stuff he did which made some people's lives easier.
That's quite good. Actually, I don't dislike that as a headstone.
Then I'll just lob rice at it overarm.
Yeah, fair. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RobWadeVision. Obviously, for the next couple of weeks, it's going to be quiet. But once I'm back, I'm sure. Sorry?
I think you're a slacker.
Well, there's that. But, as I say, limited ability of Wi-Fi as far as I know. So I don't really know.
They don't have it out there.
I think they do, but it's kind of patchier than... Yeah. You wouldn't find it at coffee shops and stuff, I guess. But, I'm sure there'll be... certainly on, on Instagram, once I'm back, I'm sure there'll be little bits and pieces that will find their way onto there. Because there'll be some, nice views and things like that we can look forward to. So Twitter and Instagram at RobWadeVision. And as I say, you've got Twitter and Instagrams for Emotionally 14 and Talk Star Wars, at Emotionally 14 and at Talk Star Wars, respectively.
Branding.
Indeed, yeah. It's all ideally, it kind of all stacks up together. That helps. And we're obviously, as Talk Star Wars, part of the Star Wars Commonwealth podcast network. So that's 8 outfits making excellent shows. Some of them have Patreon, some of them don't. But I'm going to list the entire network for you anyway.
I thought that was the tagline for a minute.
No, that's not it, no.
Talk Star Wars Network. Some have patrons, some of them don't.
I think, try and guess which ones. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So in addition to Talk Star Wars, we are also joined by the Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, the Nerd Room, Rogue Squadron, San Diego Sabres, Retro Inc., and the Sandcrawler Cast. 8 wonderful outlets making fantastic content, sometimes multiple shows in a week. It's crazy. But, yeah, that's what it's usually my line. But yeah, we do a high volume of high quality output. Some of us high. It's not even slander. It's not even slander. Brilliant. And you can find them all on the web at StarWarsCommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world from there. Until next time, listeners, thank you very much for listening this week. Thank you very much in advance for listening to the interim weeks on the 21st and 28th, where we will celebrate the life of one Steve Kirk and reflect on The Force Awakens with the help of our wonderful friends across the Commonwealth. We will see you again on November the 4th for the next mainline show, episode 188. Or, sorry, 100 and atcha. And until then, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and until the next time, may the Force be with you.